I was standing at the check-in counter at JFK Airport, clutching 3 first-class boarding passes to Paris in my trembling fingers, when my mother looked me dead in the eye and said the words that would effectively end our relationship forever. "Actually, Elena, we talked about it, and your sister Sarah needs this more than you do. So we've decided she's taking your seat and you're going to stay home and watch her cat." I honestly think I felt my soul leave my body for a second, because the sheer, unadulterated audacity of that statement was so massive, I couldn't even find the air to breathe. I had spent 18 months saving every spare cent, working overtime as a senior project manager, and skipping my own vacations just so I could treat my parents to a luxury 1-week, all expenses, paid trip to Europe to celebrate their 40th wedding anniversary. I'm talking first-class flights, a 5-star suite at the Ritz in Paris, a private tour of the Vatican in Rome, and Michelin-star dinner reservations that I had to pull strings just to get. It was a $15,000 gift of pure love, and in one sentence, they tried to turn me into a travel agent for my 30-year-old jobless sister who has done nothing but drain their bank accounts for a decade. I looked from my mother to my father, expecting him to say something, to defend me, but he just looked at his shoes and muttered something about Sarah being depressed and needing a win in her life. That was the moment the veil finally lifted, and I saw them for who they truly were. Not the loving parents I had romanticized, but enablers who viewed me as a resource and Sarah as the priority. So, I have to ask you guys right now, before I tell you how I handled the fallout at the boarding gate, was I wrong for what I did next? Tell me if you would have handed over the tickets and walked away, or if you would have done exactly what I did to ensure that nobody got to enjoy that luxury at my expense. Honestly, I'm still shaking just thinking about it, but I need to know if you think my reaction was justified or if I was being petty, like my mother claimed. To understand why this hit me like a freight train, you have to understand the dynamic of my family, which has basically been a masterclass in favoritism since I was 5 years old. I am the reliable one, the strong one, the one who worked 2 jobs through college to graduate debt-free, while Sarah is the sensitive one, the creative soul, who apparently can't hold down a job at a coffee shop for more than 3 weeks without having a spiritual crisis. My parents have spent my entire adult life patting me on the head and telling me how proud they are of my independence, which I now realize was just code for "we don't have to worry about you, so we can focus all our money and energy on your train wreck of a sister." Every time I reached a milestone, buying my first condo, getting a promotion, finishing my master's, it was met with a quick "good job, honey," followed immediately by a 20-minute update on Sarah's latest drama, whether it was her car being repossessed or her latest business venture, selling handmade crystals, failing miserably. They have literally paid her rent for 5 years, bought her 3 cars, and paid off her credit card debt twice, all while I never asked for a single dime. This trip was supposed to be the one time I was the center of attention, the one time I could show them that I was successful enough to take care of them. I wanted to see my mom's face when she saw the Eiffel Tower from her balcony. I wanted to see my dad taste real Italian wine. I had planned every second of this itinerary with so much care it was practically a work of art. But Sarah, being Sarah, couldn't stand the thought of me doing something big for them without her being the focus. A week before the trip, she started posting on Facebook about how lonely she was and how some people get everything handed to them while she struggles to find her purpose. My parents predictably fell for it hook, line, and sinker. They started dropping hints that it was sad Sarah couldn't come, but I told them point blank that I couldn't afford a fourth ticket, and that this was a trip for the three of us. I thought that was the end of it. I thought they respected me enough to respect my boundaries. Fast forward to the morning of the flight. I drove to their house at 4:00 a.m. to pick them up, and I noticed Sarah's car wasn't in the driveway, which was weird, but I figured she was staying with a friend. My parents seemed nervous, overly chatty, but I chalked it up to pre-trip excitement. We got to the airport. I checked our 6 bags, all of which I had paid the overweight fees for, and we walked toward the security line. That's when Sarah suddenly appeared from behind a pillar near the check-in desk, already holding a carry-on bag and wearing a wide, smug grin that told me she had been in on this the whole time. My mom didn't even look guilty. She just reached out, took the boarding pass from my hand, and tried to hand it to Sarah like it was a piece of junk mail. "Elena, you're so successful, you can go to Paris whenever you want," my mom said with this terrifyingly calm voice. "Sarah is in a dark place. She needs the inspiration of Europe to find herself. You can stay in her apartment while we're gone, watch the cat, and we'll bring you back something lovely from a boutique." I stood there in the middle of a crowded terminal, people buzzing past us, and I felt like I was looking at 3 strangers. Sarah actually had the nerve to say, "Thanks, sis. I'll send you lots of pics for your Instagram since you're so busy with work anyway." It was the most calculated, cruel betrayal I have ever experienced. They didn't even ask. They informed me that they were stealing my $15,000 gift and giving it to the person who has spent her life making mine harder. So that's the situation I was in, standing at the gate with my parents and my sister, being told that I was being demoted from generous daughter to house sitter for my own vacation. Before I tell you what happened next, because trust me, it gets much, much crazier, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let them go just to keep the peace, or would you have hit the nuclear button? I really want to see if your instincts match mine, because at that moment, I went from being a loving daughter to a cold-blooded strategist. I didn't scream. I didn't make a scene. I think that's what scared them the most. I just took a deep breath, looked at my watch and said, "Okay, if that's what you want, then that's what we'll do." Sarah squealed and hugged my mom, and my dad looked relieved, probably thinking he'd escaped a massive fight. I handed Sarah my boarding pass and told them I needed to go to the restroom before I drove back home. They were so busy talking about the first-class lounge and the free champagne that they barely noticed me walk away. But I didn't go to the bathroom. I went straight to the customer service desk of the airline. Since I was the one who booked the entire trip through my frequent flyer account and my own credit card, I had total control over the reservations. I sat there with the agent, my heart pounding in my ears, and I told her, "I need to cancel all 3 tickets for the flights to Paris and Rome, and I want to cancel the return flights as well. Full refund to the original card, please." The agent looked at me with pity. She'd clearly seen some airport drama in her time, and processed it. Next, I opened my phone and pulled up the app for the Ritz in Paris and our luxury hotels in Italy. I canceled every single room, every private tour, and every dinner reservation, because I had booked refundable or flexible rates for almost everything. Specifically in case of a medical emergency, I was able to get about 80% of my money back instantly. The last thing I did was call my credit card company and report my card as lost, so that the secondary cards I had given my parents for emergency spending on the trip would be instantly deactivated. I walked back to where they were standing near the security entrance. They were still laughing. I looked at Sarah and said, "I hope you find what you're looking for. Then I turned around and walked out of the airport, got in my car, and drove home. I didn't answer a single call for the next 3 hours. I knew exactly when it would happen. About 45 minutes before the flight was scheduled to depart, my phone started exploding. It was my mother, then my father, then Sarah. I let it ring. Finally, I picked up when my dad called for the 6th time. The screaming was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Apparently, when they got to the gate to board, the gate agent told them their tickets had been voided. When they tried to use the emergency credit card to buy new tickets, it was declined. They were stranded at JFK with 6 bags of luggage, no way to get to Europe, and no place to stay because I had already called the house and told Sarah's landlord, who is a family friend, that she was moving out for a while, and they should probably check on the apartment. The confrontation when they finally took an expensive Uber back to their house was legendary. They showed up at my condo that evening, pounding on the door, calling me spiteful, evil, and unstable. My mom was crying about how I ruined their anniversary, and Sarah was hysterical because she had already posted on Instagram that she was Paris-bound. I opened the door just wide enough to look at them and said, "I didn't ruin your anniversary. I gave you a gift and you tried to steal it. You told me to stay home and figure it out, so I did. I figured out that I don't pay for people who don't respect me. You wanted Sarah to have a win. Well, her win is that she gets to spend the next week at home with you, just like she always does. Have a great staycation." I slammed the door and blocked all of them. In the weeks that followed, the flying monkeys started arriving. My Aunt Martha called to tell me I was being cruel to my parents in their old age. My cousins sent me messages saying I should have just let it go for the sake of family. But you know what? For the first time in my life, I felt light. I realized that the family peace I had been protecting was actually just a cage where I was the only one paying for the bars. My parents tried to send me a bill for the Uber and the emotional distress Sarah suffered. I responded by sending them an itemized list of every dollar I had spent on them over the last 5 years, totaling over $40,000, and told them that if they ever contacted me again, I would be taking them to small claims court for the remaining non-refundable portions of the trip they forced me to cancel. I haven't heard from them since. Sarah had to get a job at a grocery store because my parents finally ran out of emergency funds after losing out on the trip, and apparently, the reality of her life is finally setting in now that her successful sister isn't there to act as a safety net. I ended up taking that refund money and putting a massive down payment on a beach house for myself. I spent that week in Paris alone 3 months later, and let me tell you, the view of the Eiffel Tower is much better when you aren't sharing it with people who treat you like an afterthought. I learned that you cannot buy love from people who only value you for your wallet. I am done being the reliable one for people who aren't reliable for me. If you think I did the right thing by canceling the trip and letting them deal with the consequences of their own greed, please hit that like button. It really helps me feel like I'm not the monster my mother says I am. Subscribe for more stories about setting boundaries and finally standing up to entitled family members, and please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Would you have gone through with the cancellation, or would you have handled it differently? I'll be in the comments reading everything. I'll see you all in the next story.